And welcome back to Frankly Speaking, in conjunction with the Knights of Christendom and May he reign. Joining me on the line tonight is my good friend Neil of the Knights of Christendom. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing fine.
And also joining me on the line is Julien DeMarco of the May he reign vlog. Julien, buddy, what's going on?
Nothing much, just chilling.
Okay, fair enough. And so, gentlemen, we got a breaking story here out of the Supreme Court. Apparently, a Supreme Court decision has been leaked that the Supreme Court is on the verge of overturning Roe v. Wade. I'm going straight to the source here. This is from the Politico. Quote, the Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, according to initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by the Politico. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, in a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. He writes in the document labeled as the opinion of the court, it is time to heed the Constitution and return to the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Code speak, federalism there, Julien. Listen, there's a lot to talk about here, Julien. Because the leak in itself has now become kind of scandalous. I'm hearing this is really only the second time in the history of the court that we've had a leaked decision. And apparently the previous decision was nothing as big and as tumultuous as an issue like abortion and Roe v. Wade. Many people now are speculating that the leak was put out by leftists on the court to get the leftist activists out on the streets, because as we're finding out now, or at least as we know, to be honest, is that these Supreme Court justices can still change their mind all the way up until, I guess, the day or close to the day of the decision is being leaked. I think this is probably something that people are speculating. They're trying to put more and more pressure on the court to change their minds here. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the decision does come out, that the leak is true, that the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. How big of a victory is this finally for the political right, who's been taking it in the gonads since 1776?
Well, it doesn't really mean much. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm always a Debbie Downer. You're the only person that I've talked about with this tonight who kind of agrees with me. Everybody else is like, oh, we have to fight, we need to pray, which is fine. And they're like, oh, this is good news. But really, all it really is a moral victory. And don't get me wrong, moral victories are good, but they're not good in of themselves. It doesn't do anything. If this does actually happen, it just goes back to the states. That does nothing for New York. It does nothing for Illinois. It does nothing for California. I mean, I live in Pittsburgh. I mean, Buffalo's 4 hours away. If somebody wants to get an abortion in Pittsburgh, I got 4 hours. I'll drive.
Well, okay. Julien, let me give you the classical liberal response to this. Their response is, listen, Julien, we're trying to turn the Titanic here, man. You don't make a sharp turn with the Titanic. You turn it slowly here. This is big, because not only does this involve abortion per se, but really the constitutional principles of protecting the Constitution itself, which has been used and abused by leftists to where they can write legislation from the bench. Overturning Roe v. Wade now is bigger than abortion itself. It is about protecting the Constitution, the abuse of Constitution, and getting back in order. Again, the idea that we actually follow the Constitution rather than making it up as we go along.
But we've always been making it up as we go along.
Well, this is going to change that. That's what they're arguing.
A little too late. We've been making it up. We've been making it up for the beginning as we go along. I mean, how do you think we live in the world we live today? Things exist in the Constitution where things don't exist.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. So
Yeah.
that really it does not. I mean, okay. So if you want to think of this in a linear way, to get back to the, I'm doing air quotes, but I'm not on the screen so you can't see it. But if you want to get back to the the Constitution, and this is just one step, well, it's one step in a 1,000-step process. So great job. We got 999 more steps to go.
Fair enough. Neil, my friend, big victory. Should we pop champagne here? If it does happen, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you mentioned the Constitution part, my first thought was we're still not going back to the Constitution because we're allowing it in different states. If it's not allowed in the Constitution, then it shouldn't be allowed in any state whatsoever.
Well, they would argue that it's a federalist issue. It goes down to the states, and the quote there from the Political says, it's going to go down to the state legislatures. It's what conservatives have been arguing for the longest time.
Yeah, but the point is that the Constitution is supposed to be the law of the land. And if this is not in the Constitution, then it shouldn't be allowed. It's not a state right at all. It should be a federal thing that's banned because the Constitution doesn't allow it. So we're not following the Constitution if that's the case. If we're saying that it's unconstitutional, we're still allowing it though. So we're ignoring the Constitution at that point, assuming that the Constitution does in fact deny this as a right and whatnot. But that depends on your interpretation of the Constitution. But I kind of agree with Julien as well. I'm kind of a negative Nancy here. It's not going to change much as far as babies are still going to die. They're still going to continue to do that in these different states because, like I said, kind of jokingly earlier, it's the capitalist system. We're going to now just pay for your abortions to come and get them in our states, Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good thing. This is a good thing, a good step in the right direction. But practically speaking, nothing's going to change dramatically. We're still going to be performing these procedures. It's still going to be allowed, and it's only going to be outlawed in certain states, maybe. And there's a question as to how outlawed it would be.
Yeah, I think it's a moral victory at the very least, which is important. I think politicians have waffled on this issue since 1973 because the moment you outlaw Roe v. Wade and say that it was bad law or it was wrong, you're saying that, well, abortion is wrong. And you're really implying that abortion is evil. And for a politician who needs his votes to get into power or stay in power, telling half of this country, or at least the 60, 70, 80 million women that have had abortions, guess what? Potentially, those are voters that are not going to come out if you're going to shame them by telling them you did something wrong in your life. And I think politics has prevented that. If we do wind up banning this thing, it is because, okay, we had the right Supreme Court justices at the right time. I'm not convinced it's going to happen just yet. We've seen, again, moments like this from the classical liberal camp where we're ready to celebrate a big decision and something along the line happens and the decision is reversed. Now, if it comes, I will celebrate it. But, Julien, I agree with you that all this is going to do is bring it down to the states in the end. And I'll go back to, I'm trying to find an analogy. I'm not sure this is a perfect analogy, but the pornography argument that the likes of Glenn Beck and Ben Shapiro continue to put up, saying, listen, pornography is bad, it's harmful, it's damaging, it destroys families and cultures, it everything that's bad. But in the name of liberty, we have to allow for porn to exist and allow it to go down to, again, a community by community basis. Because if the government steps in to ban something like pornography or abortion in this case, now we got a top system down that's going to rule with an iron fist. Now, the federal government's got to stay out of everything. And so if you got one community that says no to porn and the next community over says yes to porn, well, that's federalism. I would imagine that's how they're going to deal with this abortion issue. What is the problem with that?
Well, there's several problems, but I would really, I'm going to answer your question, but I would also like to ask a question, and it's about the politicians that you were talking about before. I'm joking and I'm being serious at the same time. What are Republicans going to run on? if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, what are they going to run on? I mean, what are they going to run on? There's no reason to vote for them anymore.
Yeah.
That's their whole shtick. What are they? But to answer your question as well, it's a problem with voting and this idea of democracy. It's why are we putting this type of thing up to a vote? Why is the government? I was talking to some people, and as I told you before, as we were talking before we started casting tonight, we should either focus on evangelizing the country to where the government naturally just makes abortion illegal because everybody in the government is Christian, or the government should just be out of it altogether. It should be, it's not illegal or legal. The government should not have this type of power over our lives about abortion.
Yeah.
So the fact that we are fighting for the government to be involved in abortion, I think is a problem in and of itself. I just don't think we're going to get anywhere if we keep insisting that the government make the decisions about abortion.
Right.
Even if, okay, let's just say that Roe versus Wade is overturned. Also, let's say the government bans abortion in all 50 states. Well, they could also, again, another Roe versus Wade 2.0. The government could also overturn the ban that it makes on abortion. So I just think that government just shouldn't be in abortion at all. Just like how Ben Shapiro says when it comes to the gay marriage issue, that the government shouldn't be in the business of marriage. Well, the government shouldn't be in the issue of abortion.
Right.
Just like if you want a gay marriage, go down to your local church. If they want to give you one, go ahead. If you want an abortion, go down to your local doctor. If he wants to perform one, go ahead.
Yeah, Neil, Julien is appealing to the libertarian argument, right? That we just need to get these issues out of government. And in fact, I heard Glenn Beck made that argument today, right? Laying out a case for the whole gay marriage issue and everything that has kind of devolved from that lifestyle over the past, since that decision was made to legalize gay marriage. And Glenn Beck's thing is, I said it years ago. I've been preaching it for years. Marriage doesn't belong to the government. We should stay out of government, and then that solves the problem. Okay, fine. I understand that. In an idealistic world, I would agree that. But this is where, again, Neil, where the libertarians fail. But the point is, government has gotten involved. And one of the reasons why government has gotten involved is because we don't exactly have a church anymore in place at the top of our civilization to deal with moral issues anymore. These were all prerogatives of the church in the old world. But when the founding fathers decided to separate church and state, and they did separate church and state because they didn't proclaim a church at the top of the nation at the founding. I know they had some state churches. I get that. But the fact is they set up the parameters for the whole thing to be broken apart because of their indifferent approach toward religion and religious liberty. When these questions come up and through the gears of democracy, people begin to work through the system and they want to demand something that the government wants to legitimize, like gay marriage, for example, here, Neil. Guess what? The government did get involved. Here's where we're at, to simply say, okay, let's just keep it out of the hands of the government. But the government has touched everything, Neil, that libertarians have been saying that they shouldn't touch, but they haven't been able to stop that. What do you do with that, Neil?
Well, because there's no moral authority anymore, the government steps in to become that moral authority.
Yes.
They step in to fill the gap. And so we got what we deserved because we divorced the church from the state. I don't know how to fix that, really. I mean, in our current world. but these issues are always going to come up, and people are going to seek an answer for someone to say yay or nay. So the government's always going to be involved in this kind of stuff because, like I said, they're filling the gap to where we once had the church as a moral authority. We kicked them out. So of course you're going to have secular now governments stepping in to make these decisions. The only way I can see a way out is to once again have that integral integration of church and state.
Yeah, and I think the question, Neil, here is to follow up here, is if the government decides to stay out of the business of affair. And like Glenn Beck was saying today, right? Catholics go to Catholic church, Mormons go to Mormon church, gays can go to their own churches to get their marriages ratified. What becomes of marriage as an institution in society? Does it even have a definition anymore? And what is the purpose of it? And can a society, again, a secular society like America, can it truly function if it doesn't define certain institutions like marriage and the benefit of marriage?
No, especially when you talk about the family, because the family is the building block of society. And when it no longer has a definition, then you've destroyed it. It has no meaning anymore. And of course, the same goes with when we talk about abortion. That's a destruction of the family as well, because you're killing your children.
Right.
You're just murdering babies. And you cannot just allow moral evils to go about, especially at that degree, and just say, well, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm not going to have an opinion on it. I'm not going to make any pronouncement on it, because that's the same as saying, okay, it is legal and I'm allowing it and I'm endorsing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Julien, your thoughts?
Oh, no, I agree. Like what I was saying before is it's not what I want to happen.
Right.
I'm just saying we need to stop giving the government so much power over our lives. That's what really the point that I was trying to make.
Gotcha. Fair point. But do you think, and here's another perspective on how to look at this libertarian kind of view on marriage. Do you think that's the best we can do with marriage in America? Because we don't have no church. We don't have any moral authority. Again, we got all these individual rights. I can pick and choose whatever personal moral codes I want. You do you, I do me, as long as we don't cross each other's property lines. We don't shoot each other. That's what America has been. And is the libertarian answer the only answer that we can possibly
deal with? Because we can't have a society, we can't have a community that doesn't agree on basic tenets and values. I mean, if we don't have a cohesion, if I don't believe that your marriage is valid because you're in an unnatural marriage, because it's two people of the same sex, that's contentious. If you believe that your marriage is valid and I'm supposed to believe that, and you're going to force everybody around you to ostracize me and force shops to cater to you, then that's problematic. We cannot have a cohesive society when we don't agree on certain things. And at this point, there really needs to be a breakup. We cannot have people like this living together. You know, one of the things that made multicultural societies in the past, multi-ethnic societies in the past work, like the Holy Roman Empire or Rome, pre-Christian and post-Christian. Pre-Christian and Christian, not post-Christian. Is that they all believed in the set of ideals. For pre-Christian Rome, it was the Roman Empire. You could worship whatever god you wanted as long as you paid your taxes. And your God became part of the Roman pantheon. And as long as you believed in the Roman ideals, you were good to go. When it became Christian, as long as when you were baptized Christian, you were baptized as a citizen of the Roman Empire. You were good to go. In the Holy Roman Empire, especially that some parts of it was Protestant, it didn't matter that you were Protestant or Catholic. There was those religious divisions, yes, but as long as you had loyalty to the Habsburgs, to the Holy Roman Empire, you were fine. But as soon as you stop having a cohesive belief in the country or the society that you live in, it all falls away. You cannot have a group of people, a vast majority of people, who believe that abortion is okay, and then a good deal of the other people who aren't in positions of authority believe that it's not,
Okay.
and think that it's going to work out fine.
Okay, so the Romans believed in the idea of Rome. Of course, the Christians believe in the idea of Christendom. What do Americans surround themselves with? The Enlightenment?
I really don't know at this point. I mean, the country has changed so fast in 32 years. It's changed so fast in the last 10 years. I honestly don't know what the country is anymore. I mean,
32. I've been around for 50. You should see the changes I've seen in 50 years. You know, Neil, I think Julien brings up a good point, and that is cohesion within society. The definition of marriage and what marriage is an institution is a building block of civilization. And if we can't even agree on what constitutes marriage, I think we have problems. I understand the libertarian argument because in many ways it's a cop-out. We don't have to deal with it because as a nation, as Americans, again, through this concept of religious liberty, which I keep railing against, we never define true moral principles. We never define God. We left it open and abstract. And Neil, maybe just the libertarian approach as Americans is the best we can do, right?
It's the best we can do. I hate to say it that way because we can do so much more. We can be better. Maybe practically speaking, the best we can accomplish, if I'm being a realist, might be a libertarian world, but it's still far from what it could be.
Yeah.
It's still far from the ideal because you're still living in a kind of moral anarchy. It's just do whatever you want, as long as you don't, quote unquote, hurt me. As long as you don't physically hurt me.
Or steal my property.
Yeah, or steal my property.
Yeah.
But I mean, then of course that gets into, well, how do you define being hurt, which people don't like to think about. And of course, you would still be allowing abortion, which hurts a child. But I mean, aside from all of that, it seems like a very weak position because it denies objective moral truth.
Okay.
It just basically says, be a relativist, do whatever you want, live however you want, doesn't matter. And that's going to lead into more and more moral decay because the left is going to take over at that point anyway, because they're going to keep pushing. They're not going to say, let bygones be bygones. Yeah. They're going to push their agenda onto our future generations.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, even before the issue of gay marriage came up, marriage, even within the straight community, was problematic because this idea that, you go to your church and I go to my church and he goes to his church kind of a thing. We already begin to saw the sexual revolution, the breakdown of heterosexual marriage 50 years prior to the decision on gay marriage. That's why a lot of times in the gay community, they look back at the straight community and say, listen, who are you to criticize us? You got a 50% divorce rate. Well, I would argue, Julien, that is because we've actually taken the libertarian approach. We've taken the Glenn Beck approach to where we define no absolute truths. Everything is abstract, right? The best we can do is sola scriptura, which of course we've seen the chaotic mess that Protestantism has become in America. And in that respect, marriage has become whatever marriage wants to be, really, in that respect, right? So I'll get married with, in Vegas with Elvis Presley walking me and my wife down, or my wife down, whatever it is. And you go to your Protestant church, and Neil will go, down a slip and slide of saying his vows to his wife, whatever it may be. I mean, it was chaotic before this decision. And we did the Glenn Beck approach, the libertarian approach. You do you, I do me. Julien.
Well, I mean, you have to concede them on this point when gays say, who are you to tell me I can't get married? Look at what you've done to marriage. You guys have over a 50% divorce rate. They're absolutely right. I mean,
because America has made a mockery out of marriage. Let's be honest. That's why we have it. Because the Glenn Becks and the Ben Shapiros don't take it seriously because they're always in a political argument and nobody wants to declare absolute truth. And this is why you got a Glenn Beck say, listen, don't ever tell anybody to tell you how to worship your God, the God that you believe in. Well, what kind of language is that? It's not just your individual God, Julien, or Neil's individual God, or my individual God. It's all of our God. And that's what the conservatives never want to get into because we have no defining principles in regards to eternal truth.
Conservatives are weak. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The conservatives, the right, or the classical liberals, however they want to classify themselves, they're all the same to me.
Yeah.
You can try and do this wordsmithing gymnastics and say that they're all different. No, they all believe in the revolutionary principles of the 17 and 1800s, so they're all the same. They're weak. They're playing chess, and their grandchildren, the leftists and progressives, are playing checkers. They're on two sides of it. They're playing two different games. And that's why the left will always continue to beat them, because the left wants power, and they know how to get power, and they know how to keep power. And the right is always willing to never use that power.
Yeah. Yep.
Even when they have it. Mm-hmm. When they have it, they never even want to use it.
Yeah.
Then what's the point? What's the point of having that power if you're not going to use it?
Yep.
The left,
very well said.
They're not afraid to use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, gentlemen, we got off track here a little bit. Let's get back to this Roe v. Wade decision coming down. Neil, listen, I think it would be a massive moral victory. I don't want to completely downplay it. I think it'll be significant to a certain degree. So I think these decisions usually come out in June, and it's like I said, at the steps of the Supreme Court, those reporters sit at the top there waiting for that decision. And when they're handed that piece of paper with decision, they're running down the steps to get in front of a mic, in front of the TV, camera there, like little Moses ready to declare what the word of God is, kind of like the 10 Commandments, ironically enough. And I've always said how interesting it is in America, how we've left all these moral issues in the hands of a secular Supreme Court, a bunch of political appointees based upon, again, the electoral process in America essentially is what it is. But okay, let's assume these NBC, Fox News, CNN reporters run down the steps here on June 1st, whatever date it is, and they report that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Is it a moment of celebration in your mind?
I think it is. I mean, it is something to celebrate because it is it is progress in the right decision, in the right direction. And we should take joy in that. It's just like I said before, it's just practically it's still going to be going on. But I think it's a good step in the right direction. It opens up, states outlawing it in their different places. It may reduce the amount of abortions that take place. And it may set a precedent to push it further and make it federal, a federal ban in the future. But whether or not that would happen, I mean, I'd be very surprised if it happens,
Okay. All right, Julien, your final thoughts, my friend.
I think it is a moral victory and it's something to celebrate. I think there needs to be more. It does open up, to what Neil was saying, but I'd be very surprised if it does. I mean, the way this country is going, I mean, it's something to celebrate indeed, because with who's president and with everything that's going on, it really, the fact that this is happening, it's quite shocking.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that stuff like this tends to always happen when the opposite party is in power in the White House.
Yeah.
It never seems to
Yeah.
correlate with the people who actually want it to be overturned.
Yep. Okay. Very well said, gentlemen. I agree with you. I'm anticipating this decision coming down. I think it's a moment of celebration. I don't think it's the perfect resolution to one of the greatest evils of our time, the American Holocaust known as abortion, especially because we Americans have not only practiced abortion for a long time, but we've pushed it all over the world. And I think outlawing it, at least from a moral standpoint, and allowing at least the red states to be free from the thumb of the feds from outright banning it in red states, at least, I think is a victory without a doubt. But there's still a fight to kind of move forward. And, you know, I'm hopeful. But at the end of the day, I'm also cautious because I know that really the world, the globe, this nation has been consumed by a dark cloud that doesn't make sense anymore in so many different areas, especially at the social, cultural, and the familial level. Julien, my friend of the Reigh vlog, I want to thank you for joining me, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And of course, my good friend, Neil over at the Knights of Christendom. Thank you, buddy, for joining me.
My pleasure.
All right. This is Frank signing off for Frankly Speaking, in conjunction with the Knights of Christendom and in conjunction with Reigh, signing off. Pray for America. Pray for all those children who have been aborted. Pray that this decision is actually reversed. Frank signing off. Good night, everybody.